I've never seen it. The wind was taking, like I stated, embers and debris that were, the size of a basketball and blowing it for miles and starting fires miles in front of the fire front that we were trying to attempt to stop.
In the eye of a firestorm, firefighters remember two of the largest fires to tear through San Diego County 10 years ago.
It does make me wonder why he doesn't look at global warming as a real problem.
In confronting climate change after Hurricane Harvey, KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. The city of San Diego is helping to expand a program for homeless people and families living out of their cars. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman tells us more about Dreams for Change.
Every night, this parking lot right behind me at Jewish Family Service in Kearny Mesa opens for people and homeless families. It used to serve about 40 vehicles, but now with the help of the city of San Diego, that's expanding to 60. There aren't many requirements for people staying here. If you don't have a record of violent crime and are trying to improve your situation, Dreams for Change will help.
70% of our clients have a source of income, so it's either through employment and or they're retired and have just, collected Social Security or disability. And those are our two major groups that we see here.
The nonprofit has been using the parking lot at Jewish Family Service for the last year. JFS gives them access to food and provides a clean space to shower and go to the bathroom.
We added Wi-Fi to the parking lot, so for a lot of families and individuals, they're filling out employment applications, they're filling out different forms online, kids are doing homework.
Together, Dreams for Change and Jewish Family Service try and make the space feel like home.
That we end up developing our own little community here. And, the clients start becoming friends, the kids, they play together, and it's great for their emotional support and their mental health and their well-being. Because that's something that we couldn't, as staff, really give to them, but they can get within each other.
Up to now, Dreams for Change has had a 6-month waiting list for these parking spaces. Next week, they'll open another location with 60 more overnight spaces.
Between the lots that we talked about today, there are still probably 700-800 cars that are parked on city streets and parked throughout the county and not in safe places. And so this is really an opportunity for businesses to think about their own parking lot, partnering with us, partnering with Dreams, and figuring out a way to get more families off the street.
Dreams for Change says it's on a 6-month contract with the city to expand homeless services. After that, there's an option to continue the program for another year and a half. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Governor Brown made his final decisions on bills Sunday night, just minutes before his midnight deadline. Of the 977 bills sent to his office, the governor signed 859 of them. He vetoed 118, one that made it through, a measure allowing Californians to identify their gender as non-binary on driver's licenses. This is to accommodate anyone who doesn't identify as solely male or female. It's the latest effort by the state to ease barriers for LGBT people. The governor also signed a bill to fast-track remedial education reform in community colleges. Research shows the current system to bring underprepared students up to speed in math and English can actually hurt their chances of earning a degree. The new law requires schools to limit the use of remedial classes and pushes efforts similar to some piloted locally at Cuyamaca and Mesa colleges. California's 3-term Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein has a challenger.
My name is Kevin DeLeon, and I'm running for the U.S. Senate in California. It doesn't make a difference.
De Leon is currently the leader of the state Senate. The Los Angeles Democrat says he's running on his progressive record of fighting climate change and pushing for immigration reform. Feinstein has held her seat since 1992 and has never faced a serious electoral challenge from within her party. San Diego Republican Congressman Darrell Issa has more cash on hand than any of his Democratic challengers in the 49th congressional district race. But KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John says the three Democrats running to unseat him are in a fierce battle to boost their campaign war chests.
Issa has raised more than $430,000 since June. His three Democratic challengers together have raised more than twice that. Democrat Doug Applegate, who narrowly lost to Issa last November, raised the least, just under $150,000. He's also spent about that much, so his cash in hand remains the same as it was in June. Mike Levin, an Orange County environmental attorney, raised twice that, $300,000. Almost all of that was in individual contributions. Of the Democrats, he has the most cash on hand. Paul KERR, a Rancho Santa Fe real estate investor, jumped into the race most recently last July. He's declared over $500,000 in receipts, but more than half of that he contributed to his own campaign. Whoever wins next June's primary will likely take on Issa next year. Allison St. John, KPBS News.
Tens of thousands of displaced people in Northern California have been allowed to return home. The winds that were driving the wildfires there died down over the weekend and helped firefighters gain some ground. The fires in Napa, Sonoma, and Yuma counties are the most destructive the state has ever seen. They've been blamed for the deaths of 40 people and the destruction of 5,700 homes and other structures. About 100 people are still missing. A firefighter is among those killed in the wildfires, and officials say the driver of a water transport truck was killed today when his truck rolled over near one of the fires in Napa Valley. The cause of the crash is still under investigation. Some of the evacuees are returning to intact homes, while others have found only ashes and rubble where their homes once stood. 74-year-old Napa resident Jack Daniels surveyed the wreckage with his grandkids.
So there's very little time. I ran in, grabbed our grandson who was staying with us, 7 years old, my wife and our two pug dogs, threw them in my car, and we backed out. And as we backed out, the house just went up in flames. So we were very fortunate to get out.
About 40,000 evacuees are still waiting for permission to go back to their communities. We are currently midway through what has historically been the worst month for wildfires in California. This coming weekend marks the 10-year anniversary of a devastating firestorm that swept across San Diego County, burning more acreage and buildings than any other firestorm before it. As part of our special coverage, Living with Wildfires, KPBS reporter Eric Anderson looks back at the Harris and Witch Creek fires.
This is fairly sparse.
Retired Fire Chief Pete Scully kneels down at the edge of a sweeping valley near Potrero.
This is all dead. So this is very fine dead fuel. This will burn very quickly. And this is similar to what we were seeing during the Harris, or prior to the Harris fire, when we were concerned with fuels.
The Harris fire started near here just after 9 a.m. on Sunday, October 21st. The region was being buffeted by hurricane-force Santa Ana winds.
We didn't even get out of our vehicles because it was so windy. I mean, your pickup truck is just rocking. It's like being on a ship's deck. That's how hard the wind's blowing.
The blaze roared through this rural valley, consuming more than 250 homes and charring more than 90,000 acres.
This fire was lapping at 100 foot of clearance. I watched houses, literally watched houses at the top of Barrett Grade almost explode as the fire front came in.
Scully recalls it was like a chimney laid on its side, with flames and heat being pushed through the valleys by hot winds. One fire crew was overrun by flames near Potrero. He heard their pleas, but couldn't help.
That was, I mean, I'm responsible for that as the operations chief, and it literally felt like somebody had punched me in the stomach.
All those firefighters and one civilian survived, but another man died there. In all, 8 people would lose their lives before the flames were finally put out more than a week later. Just a few hours after the deadly Harris fire started burning, the winds sparked another blaze near Santa Isabel. CAL FIRE's Randy Scales says it would come to be known as the Witch Creek Fire.
The fire actually started just over that ridge. There's another set of power lines that run through that area over there, and it was actually started from a power line from one of the higher tension power lines that carries a little higher voltage of electricity than your normal power lines that go to your residential areas.
Once the fire was spotted, firefighters retreated to Ramona to save homes. This amateur video shows the black plume of smoke as the fire moved past the town. Seasoned firefighters knew where the flames were heading.
Typically your winds follow the valley in the strongest conditions, and so the low-lying areas, that wind channels through there and it pushed it right through that San Pasqual Valley.
That's where the blaze found San Diego Fire Chief Rick Ballard. His crew was protecting a home on the edge of a ridge overlooking the San Pasqual Valley. Ballard saw the glow in the east and watched as the blaze advanced in the middle of the night.
For the first thing that we saw were embers going by us. You know, just like you slap again a campfire, the embers blow off. If you imagine having your face in that.
The Witch Creek Fire had joined with the Wajito Fire by the time the flames found Ballard's crew. They were expecting the head of the fire to hit around 4 a.m. The merged fire got there a couple hours early.
I've never seen it. The wind was taking, like I stated, embers and debris that were, you know, the size of a basketball and blowing it for miles and starting fires miles in front of the fire front that we were trying to attempt to stop.
The flames made 3 runs up the hillside that Ballard's crew was defending. The heat and thick smoke forced the crew to seek refuge in the home for a time, but they were back outside battling the flames a short while later. Ballard's crew saved this house, but the blaze roared into Rancho Bernardo, destroying 365 homes.
The huge factor is the wind. You know, the wind, when the wind died down, we were able to get to work and finally get the fire out. And there are some conditions that are acts of nature that we cannot control. You know, we do our best to make sure that the lives are saved, that we protect the lives, then the property.
More than 500,000 people in the path of the flames were asked to leave their homes. It was the largest evacuation in the county's history. More than 1,100 families didn't have homes to return to once the fire was stopped more than a week later. Together, the Witch Creek and Harris fires charred close to 300,000 acres. 10 people died in the firestorms. The wind-driven fires destroyed more than 3,000 buildings and damaged hundreds more. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
KPBS invited viewers to share their memories of the 2007 wildfires at our KPBS listening post at the Rancho Bernardo Library. Sachel Daria talked about how he found out about the fires and what he was able to take when he evacuated.
I got up at 4:50 in the morning with burning eyes. So behind my house there is, so I first flushed my eyes to make sure I could see through the eyes. Then behind my house is the wilderness, the green belt. So I went to see if there was fire there, and I didn't see any fire there. So I said, well, that was a good thing, so maybe I should go take a shower, put a few things in the car. As I was going back to the shower room, I happened to look outside my left window of the house, and there were a couple houses on fire, and there was a 4-story high wall of fire behind that, so I realized I didn't have much time to escape. So I basically took photo albums, my passport, and that's about it. Just before the fires, in 2006, I lost my wife. And then I lost the house. So what I realized was I was at the best place I could be for rebuilding. There was nothing but upside for me. So bad things happen, but then there is always a positive thing. There's always an uptick for that.
He also says his heart is with the survivors of the fires in Northern California, and he hopes they get the support they need to start over. The fires took many people by surprise. Marguerite Lorenz lost her home in Fallbrook. She now lives in Temecula. You can see more of the stories of San Diego residents.
Fallbrook during the time of the Rice Canyon fires. We lived in a mobile home park called Valley Oaks. We were getting ready for school. My boys were in junior high school. They were going to Potter Junior High. We turned on the TV, and there was Bill Metcalf, who was the North County fire chief at the time and a dear friend, who said, don't wait for us, don't wait for our calls, get out now. And they showed a map. And we really didn't expect the fire to jump the 15 freeway. We loaded up just a few things, us, and I had a suit jacket and a pair of sneakers. And we headed into town. And we never saw our home again. We finally get back, and it was the following Saturday. And we were allowed to at least drive into the mobile home park to see it. Oh, I cried immediately. I had such a sweet little house. My very first home. I was a single mom. I bought this home on my own, and it was completely gone. Dealing with the ashes of your home is a startling event. And 105 of my neighbors all lost their homes on the same day. So there were a lot of us hugging each other and connecting with each other, even those of us who had never actually met. It's almost 10 years later. I have such a blessed life. I'm so grateful for the friends I made and for the help that I received and for the people I'm still connected to after that disaster. I'm sad because I have special things for my grandparents I'll never have again. There are baby pictures I'll never have again. You know, there's certain things like that. They're irreplaceable. It's a fact. But at the same time, you end up being grateful for what you do have.
You can see more stories of San Diego residents who survived the 2007 wildfires on our website. Just go online to kpbs.org/2007fire. On October 21st, 2007, 2 wildfires broke out in San Diego County. The Witch Creek fire erupted near Ramona. Further south, the Harris fire broke out near the town of Potrero. Brooke lineman, was in a crew of firefighters that was among the first to respond to the Harris fire, and the first of a 2-part series. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg and video journalist Katie Shulov tell us what lineman experienced changed her life.
Brooke Lindman lives on a quiet street in Mira Mesa.
Hi, guys. How's your day?
She has 3 young children.
This one's kindergarten. So kindergarten, preschool, and Gage, do not climb on the couch. Third grade.
And a daughter who's a senior in high school.
What?
Can you hold me?
Lindman's living room is filled with mementos from her 8-year career as a firefighter. A blackened object sits on the mantel in a glass case. It's Lindman's badge. She was wearing it on the day she almost burned to death. It was Sunday, October 21st, 2007. It was hot. Santa Ana winds were blowing. Lindman was at her fire station in San Marcos.
And we heard the fire start in South County on the radio. And it was just one of those days you woke up and you knew just this was going to be a good fire day.
Shortly after the fire broke out near the town of Potrero, Lindman's crew was sent to fight it. They raced along Highway 94, trying to save homes. After an hour or so, they were summoned to a property where the fire had just burned through.
Oh, here we go.
The property owner, Thomas Vorschach, and his teenage son, Richard, were trying to save their house.
That's their property.
Lindman saw smoke billowing up around them.
I remember being surprised because we were in the middle of burn, which for a firefighter, that's the safest place to be. The fire's already gone through. Burn doesn't burn, usually.
Lindman's crew drove to Vorschach's house and surrounded it with hoses.
Okay, so yeah, the house was over here.
Despite blasting it with water, the home was quickly engulfed in flames.
Again, the house. Oh, boy. There's the fire truck.
Everyone piled into the fire engine to escape, but the vehicle was stuck.
That's where I was sitting right there.
The heat was building up around them. Lindman's captain yelled out to put fire shelters in the windows.
And then hit us from right here.
Lindman was reaching for her radio to call for help when the windows exploded.
I remember dropping the radio and sinking into my chair and just having that thought that I can't believe I'm going to die in my fire engine right now.
Lindman felt ready to give in. Suddenly, she remembered her daughter's face.
And I had distinct thoughts of her and seeing her, and I sat back up and said, no, you're getting out of this fire engine right now. You're not dying today.
One by one, the crew and the Vorschach squeezed out of the vehicle. When it was Lindman's turn, she jumped out into the flames and ran.
And I jumped out the driver's side, and I ran this way.
After a few moments, Lindman stopped. All was quiet. And then the pain hit. Lindman realized she was on fire. She grabbed her water bottles and poured them over her head. Lindman had lost her helmet. Her face was scorched, and her hair was burned off.
And then I heard Richard scream. And it was one of those screams that just chills you to your bones. And I turned and I looked, and there he was walking towards me, and he was standing like this, and skin was hanging, and he was full of soot, and he was just in agony.
Lindman forgot about herself.
And I've told Richard to this day, you saved me that day, because I think I would have gone into shock and just laid down and given up. And as soon as I heard him and saw him, I know I have a patient. I have a job to do.
Lindman got out her fire shelter and grabbed the teenager.
And I, with one foot, held the shelter, and with the other arm, held the shelter, and with my other leg and arm, held him. And these were like the rocks I held Richard under the shelter on.
The next thing she knew, a helicopter landed close by. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
Our Living with Wildfires series continues tomorrow. We'll find out about Brooke Lindman's painful recovery and how her near-death experience changed the direction of her life. There's a cooling trend on the way for San Diego County. Jeff Cornish has more in tonight's forecast.
It's been a very challenging week across the California area, southern and central California, because of the wildfires. The biggest issues have obviously been to our north over the past 7 days. There's some good news out there, though. As you are well aware, the firefighting efforts have been much smoother and more successful over the past 36 hours, especially this Monday. Great strides here. It's still very dry. Humidity is really low, but the winds are lighter, and that's a huge help to the firefighters across California. Wave heights are going to grow. The surfers will be happy. Just be careful out there Tuesday into Wednesday. And one thing that will cause much rejoicing will be a significant rise in humidity later this week, and some parts of at least south central California will even see some drizzle and some rain break out. Still a little bit tricky to see if we will actually see rain in San Diego or drizzle, but our humidity is going to certainly rise later this week. Tonight we're on track for 68 degrees as our low, mainly clear out there. The first front in a series of fronts is going to sling onshore into the Pacific Northwest tonight. Now we're well south of that, so it'll be a quiet night for us. Down to 55 in Ramona. Borrego Springs 64, Mount Laguna 52, and we'll be around 68 degrees in San Diego. That stiff offshore breeze is coming to a conclusion, and temperatures are not going to be as warm into Tuesday and Wednesday. Still smoky to our north with some peripheral impacts in our local air quality, but the worst of it is off to the north. And it's going to be a warm time in places like Ramona, 96, Alpine 94, Mount Laguna 78. There's Borrego Springs, not far from 100. We'll be back around 84. Still warm out there on Tuesday. Your 5-day forecast for the coastal region shows a significant step down. At this point, we're playing Friday with mist in the morning. And if it's any more significant, maybe we would elevate that language to drizzle. And to our north, a couple hundred miles off north, there will be some rain, and that's a good thing. Regardless, everybody's going to see a significant jump in the humidity. In the inland areas, we're at around 97 on a hot Tuesday, but down to 77 Friday. That's a big dip. 20-degree drop. Mountain forecast dropping to 61, breezy with some sunshine still Friday. And in the deserts, we drop from 99 to 86 into Friday. I'm Jeff Cornish for KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff on the next News Hour. We head to New Mexico, a state that's making slow but steady progress against opioid addiction. That's Monday on the PBS News Hour.
Some Gulf Coast residents say Hurricane Harvey has led to an ideological shift. They're questioning if human behavior is adding to the force of recent storms. It's something many conservative Trump supporters have long disputed.
Kate Kirshner sings a hymn while playing a piano spared by Hurricane Harvey. Memorial Baptist Church in Port Arthur, Texas, was gutted due to Harvey-related floods. After surveying the damage to his community and lifelong church, Kirshner's grandfather, Wayne Christopher, says he now questions President Trump's stance on global warming.
It does make me wonder why he doesn't look at global warming as a real problem. Because you can make all the money in the world here, but if you don't have a world here, what good is it going to do you?
Jefferson County, Texas was swamped by Harvey. Most of Joe Evans' property was spared. Still, he feels for neighbors.
People lost so much, and I didn't, so.
Evans, like the majority of people in the county, voted for President Trump.
I'm a conservative, I'm a Republican, so I listen to this echo chamber talk. And that's what everybody in the echo chamber says. It's a hoax, Al Gore, blah, 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 blah. And then so it really irritates me that the president comes out and repeats stuff like that.
While Evans opens to the idea that humans have an impact on climate, residents like Wilton Johnson aren't convinced.
I just don't think we should look at two storms and say we're ruining the earth.
Jefferson County is in the heart of oil country, adding to the intensity of the conversation about global warming. But while people debate whether climate change is real or a hoax, as President Trump has repeatedly called it, Memorial Baptist Church leaders question if they can rebuild. The church couldn't afford flood insurance and dropped it 2 months before the storm.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.